Slobbery drooly slobber face of a dog. Hey Goof, it's going to be a scorcher today, eh? I can hear the heat bugs. Alright, so, you know what we're going to talk about today? I'm going to let my dog tell the story today. What are we going to talk about today? The 100 years of World War I? Is that what we're going to talk about? Or you're just going to get petted?
So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is 100 years since World War
I don't think my dog can do it, so I'm going to do it. Anyway. Alright, you can grab your stick. So, 100 years since World War I, so I got a cat rolling on the ground there. Maybe she could tell the story. What you're going to get is, we're almost in the same repeat scenario again. You want to tell the story? I'm not going to tell you the story. Okay, and you're all dirty. Oh my god, you're a dirty cat. Yeah. So anyway, World War I, there's no more World War I vets left. I mean, that was a long time ago. It was 100 years ago. And I mean, most guys were underage when they signed up. I mean, you had to be, I think, 16 or 18 to fight in the war, but most people lied. I think you had to be 18, and most lied about their age. And, you know, at the time, they didn't really take any, real measures to ensure quality control. So many guys were, 14, 15, 16 years old. And so I was just watching the CBC, and they're talking about this. And they dug up one file of a veteran who basically, was 14 years old in 1914 and went into the war. And he said a few things. He says, look, when you see, a guy lying there with his guts, well, it takes a lot out of you. He goes, when you see a line, a whole bunch of men lying there after a big shell landed in between them and their parts are up in the trees and everything like that, he goes, that takes away your patriotism pretty fast. I mean, these guys had no idea what they were getting into. I mean, they were sold the bill of goods that, you know what, you're going to go fight in a war, be very patriotic, and it'll be over in like 3 weeks. Yeah, 4 years later, one of the most destructive parts of human history, took place, right? So, now, with World War I, most of the trench warfare was, obviously the most brutal, nobody can imagine, because, you can't imagine it. But most of it was trench warfare and stuff like that. So although a lot of civilians did die in World War I, it wasn't nothing like World War II. World War II is still the reigning champion of, mass, cleansing of the planet, so to speak. And in such a short period, But these wars only lasted, well, not only, but 4 years. World War II was technically, depending on it was 4 years for some nations, but it was like 5 or 6 years for everybody else. So, we'll split the difference and say 4.5 years. 1938 to 1945. But the real, war really kicked off in 1940 officially. Again, depending on what nation you were in, you'll say, no, the war kicked off in 38. No, it kicked off in, like the Spanish War and stuff like that. And then, of course, the occupation started in build up from 1933 right to 1938. And then, all hell breaks loose noticeably where they actually call it a war in 1940. Now, getting back to World War I, the other thing the guy said too, because he fought in the Battle of Somme and Vimy Ridge, which are two very, very, World War I. If you don't know about Vimy Ridge and World War I, well, that was a big one. And the Battle of Somme was pretty big. Also, there was the Battle of where was it? Ert? Not Ert. I'm trying to think of it here. Anyway, where chemical warfare, Yerps. I'm drawing a blank right now. You think I might remember my history a little bit better, but it is hot out. So anyway, where chemical warfare was used against Belgians and Canadians for the first time, chlorine gas. Now, this guy also says something very interesting too, and this is something. The reason why I'm making this video is because it puts things into perspective before people make decisions, and how they get the masses to make, basically the sheep concept where they just follow the leader. Is he's standing over graves in probably one of the grave sites in France, or somewhere where they have mass burials, and you have all the headstones there, and he says He says the worst of it was all the brilliant guys that got killed that could have been something. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe not those exact words, but in that, they could have been something. They were so young, you know what I mean? And this is what happens when people don't question things. You know, because at the heart of the soldier, the same World War One, World War Two, you know, these people did it for patriotism. They did it because they believed in the cause. I'm not saying the cause was right. I'm not saying the cause was wrong. Well, obviously, war is usually never the right way to go. But they did it for the right morally reasons for themselves. You know, for themselves. However, what they didn't know is they were being taken advantage of by bankers, and that's you know, all wars are bankers' wars, right, Missy? That little cat. Anyway, bottom line, you know, it brings it home, like the effects. I mean, this guy's never, you know, obviously, till he died, probably never ever forgot. Will you be quiet, you dang dog? Well, come on. I don't know what it's not even. Dang cat. Always interrupting my videos. But anyway, you know, like, it just kind of makes you think, okay, you know, the rich and elite that get us into these wars for the crazy reasons that they get us into the wars are detached from reality. You know, to think about it this way, I mean, you have all these guys, you know, and this is another thing he said, that were basically, you know, the tombs of the unknown soldier. Basically, these guys, he says, that wasn't a decent burial, you know. He says they were basically picked up like garbage and buried, you know. And I mean, again, that's the disasters of war. I mean, you're going to find body particles. You're not going to know whose head or whose arm or whose torso that was. You know what I mean? Like that's, you know, something you never want to really see. Even in this day and age of people being so, you know, I mean, nothing is shocking anymore. But there's a difference when you see pictures of stuff like this, but it's definitely not the same as seeing it in real life, right? That would affect you. And when you look at the PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, which I think a lot of it has to do with just the toxicity of the environments that, you know, like Gulf syndrome and stuff like that. You know, and the PTSD, you know, a lot of it is probably the nerves, number one, just because, you know, are you going to take a, you know, a mortar round or a bullet from the, you know, side somewhere out of nowhere? I mean, that'd be a paranoid way to live, right? And then, of course, if you've seen, you know, people that you trained with get killed, that's going to mess you up in the head as well. I mean, war is not pretty. But yet the elites never have to fight it. Their kids never have to fight it. And if they do enter into George Bush, for example, yeah, okay, George Bush Sr., he flew airplanes. So did his son. But his son was never going to be put in danger, you know what I mean? Now, again, we'll use McCain, for example. Now, I'm a Canadian. I'm looking at these politicians like McCain, okay, and Kerry. Both were, Kerry was a POW in Vietnam, and McCain was an F-4 Phantom pilot as well. These guys are messed up in the head. They should not be in positions of power. These guys are messed up. They can't wait to fight the last war, you know? And it's guys like that that will get people killed for no reason, you know? And again, you would think after World War I we would have learned our lesson. And they said never again, you know, or lest we forget. And then after World War II, they said never again. And 100 years almost to the day later, we're in the exact same kind of, maybe not identical details, but the same situation that got us into World War I. The sinking of the Lusitania. Okay. You have the, the shooting down of MH370. And there's a lady that sent me an interesting thing about the numerology thing about Christine Lagier, the IMF banker, about her numerology thing. And the way she explained it, it came out MH17. So that one I don't know 100%. I mean, some people have, you know, can make connections places where I can't see it or whatever. So I'm not saying that, but I mean, the point is that it's not unbelievable that this whole thing was planned. And to me, it's looking very much like it's planned, which we've already had. I mean, and this is what I can't understand about people who, you know, say, well, I don't believe in conspiracy. Yeah, you got to be able to back things up. You got to put your money where your mouth is, and I get that. And I try to do that as much as possible. But on the other hand, it's just some people cannot grasp they can grasp the concept of a drug dealer. They can grasp the concept of a bank robber or a murderer or a serial killer. They can grasp those concepts, but they cannot grasp the concept of a criminal elite that are trying to run the world. Dumb criminals sell drugs. Smart criminals get into banking, central banking. You see what I mean? Like, they can't make that connection, and that's why they can't get out of that comfort zone of conspiracy. So when you say, oh no, they would never do something like this. And then a couple of years ago, you had Jay Carney saying, look, if we can't get to war with Iran, maybe it's better if somebody else starts the war, i.e., we're not going to say who, but, he starts talking about all the false flags, the sinking of the Maine, or the exploding the Maine. The Maine exploded, years after, and I'm probably sure they probably figured it out back then, but they used that as an excuse to get into a war. Lusitania, when Bismarck, when he got shot, the Gulf of Tonkin, all these things. And he starts talking about how we need to create a false flag so we can get into a war. Well, isn't that just admitting treason? Now this guy's quit his job. I mean, these guys, I think when they get on their deathbed, especially like the Rockefellers and all that in the world, if they have any question about what they did, boy, they must be fearing hell right now. It's like, their consciences. I mean, well, they can't have a conscience because they can't do the things that they're doing and have a conscience. It would be, impossible. Nobody can be that cruel with a conscience. But then again, to fathom that, to me, I can't fathom the idea of people who don't even know each other. I can fathom the idea of a duel. I hate you, you hate me. We'll meet you at 7 o'clock. Bring the pistols. I can fathom that. Okay, I can't fathom shooting at somebody I don't know their name. You know what I mean? To me, that's. But I haven't lived that way. I look at what's going on in Gaza and I look at what's going on in Ukraine. I'm like, you're the same damn people. Yeah, you have a little bit of a different belief system, but you're the same damn people. Why are you shooting at each other? Because governments told you to shoot at each other. Or Hamas, you could call them. They're definitely not a government, but they are basically a representation of an ideology. Sure, but they are kind of they're an organization. They're just not called government. They're just called terrorists, or they're called freedom fighters or whatever. But they're a group. And obviously it's never the guys high up that usually fight. Now, mind you, many of them do. Many of these guys actually do. But the thing is none of them want peace. They're all... I know I've said this before. Like the Hydra. And I've only got one hand, so I can't do that Hail Hydra thing. But you know about the Hydra, and if you follow my channel, you know what I'm talking about. They're death cults. And what was World War I but a death cult? Now, you're probably saying, yeah, but they wouldn't have gotten that many people killed, in the name of whatever. Well, hey, there was a lot of transfers of wealth. Rothschilds made a lot of money off the World War I and World War II. Again, you prop up both sides, right? And don't look at the things that got destroyed during the war. Look at what, in the World War I, World War II, look at what didn't get destroyed. The banking stuff was always fine. You know what I mean? So even... the Hitler burning down the Reichstag, those things were, to use as justification. But think about the madness in that. You're using that for an excuse to go kill people. It doesn't really matter what, you hate these people for this reason. That doesn't matter. It's the idea that they're looking for an excuse just to kill people. Death cult. And the biggest thing that allows that to happen is when the watchmen get off the fence and they become apathetic, which 99% of all humanity is apathetic to anything. They don't want to get involved. They don't want, nobody wants to rock the boat, self-included. Nobody wants to rock the boat. But then again, are you doing any favors to humanity if you don't rock the boat? I mean, I started doing these blogs, and it was really hard for me to get into the geopolitical stuff because it's like the first thing that you think of is that all your friends are not going to see eye to eye on everything you talk about and stuff like that. And I noticed that a lot of people, after I started particularly talking about the World War III stuff, it was like, oh, crap, he's lost it. But now I've got, the friends that they watch it, well, they won't tell you in public, but they watch it religiously. And because they're like, well, why am I not hearing this on the mainstream media? That's an excellent question. But here's the problem, and something I've always said before. You got your guy in the center who's considered the tinfoil hat conspiracy nut. Hi, I'm a conspiracy nut. I'm right in the center. Blah, 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 blah. And you got the guy over here, the media saying, he's nuts. Don't listen to him. I told you, he's nuts. Don't listen to him. Okay, and then the guy goes, no! And this guy goes, well, he's right, but don't worry about it. Nothing to see here, people. Move along. And then it's like, and this guy goes, okay, run. It's like, and we're at that point where I'm noticing on mainstream media, I got a lot of information about this conspiracy stuff on the mainstream media. Run, hide. You know, they're agreeing with me. Why? Don't agree with me. No, keep calling me a nut. Then I know we're safe. Once they start agreeing with you, oh God. Again, there's no atheists in foxholes. You know what I'm saying? You know, but the thing is it always comes a little too late, and you know the masses will not get it. Most people don't understand how we got into World War I, how we got into World War II. The financial stuff plays out the same. First you have trade war, then currency war, and then you have actual war. You know, all the other little minute steps of he said, she said in between are really not that relevant. It's what direction do we move in. Now, 100 years from World War I, how are we doing? So when are we going to be shooting at the Russians? You know, or the Chinese? I don't know. Or are they going to shoot at us first? You know, preemptive strikes. I mean, living in an era of the insanity of preemptive strikes. You know what I mean? Like, if there's ever a way to guarantee to get into a war, do a preemptive strike. We think they're doing something. Nuke them. You know, nuke them. Why? Because we know that they were thinking about doing this and that they would have actually done this by this date and time. You know, isn't that pre-crime? You can't do that. You know, yeah, but they do that. I mean, and I gotta say, I got had on some of the propaganda too. You know, Netanyahu out there. Iran is 2 days away from making a nuclear bomb to wipe out 18 planets of the universe. I don't know what 18 planets would be, but you get the idea. And his you know, red line bomb, Bugs Bunny bomb. And I was like, okay, that's pretty serious. But he's been saying this for 30 damn years. You know, they all have. So, you know, okay, I guess maybe Israel's on imperial time and Iran is on metric time, and it just doesn't line up. I don't know. You know, maybe do a conversion somewhere. Maybe, okay, yeah, he's right, but I can't even stretch that far. You know what I mean? Metric time, you know what I mean? But anyway, and there, yeah, for anybody who wants to know, there's 100 seconds in a metric minute. Yeah, so nobody uses metric time anyway. But it exists, yeah. So anyway, everything's in tens, yeah. So anyway, so 100 years later, we're, you know, no better off. We haven't learned a damn thing, and people are too dumbed down to get it. So how do you stop it? Well, I'm sure, and this is the thing that in this day and age where we have something a little bit different, is that we have communication that they were not, to me, I think Facebook and YouTube, okay, started off just as businesses. Then what I think is Twitter and all those other things that follow, basically, where social media were designed just to distract people, to dumb them down. So I'm going to tell you what I had on my toast today, and that's all people are going to do with it. It was basically like interactive TV, you know, where you know, people be so absorbed, and you know, Dancing with the Stars can distract most people, but not everybody likes that, right? So TV, not everybody watches TV, so you need to dumb them down. You need a device that actually hooks them in, and these devices are very, very, they're weapons. They do, people could spend all day on their Xboxes, tweeting on their cell phone, not even engaging in the real world, making videos. I mean, attention whore 101 right here, right? Or they can use it for good. But understanding the technology, how it is perceived to be basically so narcissistic that you just are oblivious what's going on in the world. This is very good for people who want to control the world. Why? We don't even have to distract them. They'll distract themselves. And while these people are distracted, then they can do whatever they want. But there's a problem. Something I've always said, Facebook, YouTube, they're weapons. They are incredible weapons. They are more powerful. They have the potential of more power than all nuclear bombs put together. Why? Because they have the potential of persuasion. The persuasion is this, you know, stop war or you're going to die. People say, okay, well, let's not go to war. Now you have a big protest. The Syrian civil war that's going on now, although it got hijacked, started off with a Facebook post. Bahrain started off as a Facebook post. Occupy Wall Street started off as you see what I'm saying here? That yes, it can unite the masses, which is a double-edged sword for people who want to control. Hence why you're seeing such a push for internet neutrality, which is basically a code word for, again, it's New World Order newspeak. Peace is war, poverty is wealth. It just, everything is a contradiction to what it actually is. And, net neutrality means corporations can control your freedom of speech. Now, that said, YouTube doesn't have to allow freedom of speech. They're a private company. It's not constitutionally, protected. However, they know they make money off of it. So, if they get too strict, people are just going to go somewhere else, and somebody else is going to be a competitor. And say, hey, you know what? You could say whatever you want on this. We're not going to censor you whatsoever, which they shouldn't. Which they should. I mean, people have the right to watch things, but they also have the right to not watch things. So, I say at best, if a video has objectionable content or something graphic in it, just have a warning that comes up. Say, look, enter at own risk, or watch at own risk, that type of thing. That's all you need. You don't need to police it any more than that. But they don't want that because, and YouTube is pretty good. Hey, YouTube is pretty darn good. I'm nearly 5,000 videos in, and I've shaken the boat a few times. Even had my channel pulled once mysteriously for a reason unknown. So things can happen. I get that. But the thing is to get away with what I've gotten away with, bringing subjects to light to hopefully avoid things like World War I, because at least in World War I, the chlorine gas only went across the field. It didn't wipe out an entire city at a time. And yes, I know. And this is the good news. After a thermonuclear war, well, I'll tell you right now. I'll even make the bold statement now. If a nuke goes off, and the powers that be have caused it, I will deputize myself. I will look for a huge posse, and we are going to go arrest the people who made it happen. Why? Because at that point, rule of law will not exist, and I'm about rule of law and to restore it. Because there's no point in going after the little guys when it's these big psychopaths that are getting us into these things. So nukes go off. If these people, who are heavily prepared and building bunkers, they've built bunkers left, right, and center, and storing them. All the world's elites have been doing this because they're getting ready for a war. Now, when it's going to get here, who knows? But they know it's coming. That's why they're buying all these, shelters in the past couple of years and stuff like that. Now, the thing is that's going to be their tombs if World War III comes to fruition. Why? Because right now, a guy like me, no one's really going to listen to. I'm just a guy babbling on YouTube, right? But when everybody is starving because of a nuclear holocaust and dying, their loved ones are dying of radiation sickness, those that do survive will listen to guys like me up on the rock type of thing, preaching the word of those bastards did this to us. And this is how, this is what they used, this is the monetary system, this is how it was a Ponzi scheme. Because most people don't even know where the dollar comes from. Okay, so with that said, those people, no matter how much security, their security forces will be killed off. Because again, if you really want to be defending the people that the pitchfork revolution is going to come after, no, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be those people. And what I'm saying now, if you are one of these elites and you do happen to ever stumble across a video like mine, which I'd be flattered that you would actually care that much, you're better off to face the jury of 12 now than the mob of 600 to 1,000 at your doorstep with pitchforks. Just saying, if you look at what happened during, the witch hunts and stuff like that, you're a new witch. So, central banker, you're going to want to hide that. Oh, yeah, I did that. And the ultra elites, well, there's no place they're going to ever be able to hide. It's like they're in that vault. Wait till they come out, blow them up. No, or we just weld the doors shut. You can't come out. We don't want you here. You got 10 years of food. Use it wisely. That type of thing. So anyway, digressing a bit here, but so World War I, we're put in the same situation again and again and again. We have the opportunity, and more people are waking up on a daily basis. And within 100 years of the current way things are going, even one of my old prime ministers, Brian Mulroney, says politicians cannot get away with what they used to. There's cameras everywhere. That's the tricky thing about the spy grid. That's why they can't make up all the things about MH17 and stuff like that in the Ukraine. They can't control the narrative because there's people countering it. It's like, well, they said the Russians did this, but yet here's the video proof that they didn't, here or whatever. And plus, people are saying, well, how do you guys know this? And I'm also seeing it change on the CBC where now they're talking about, well, they're going to do an investigation and we're going to find out what happened. But right away it was touted as Putin shot it down, Putin shot it down, Putin shot it down. Lusitania, Gulf of Tonkin. You see what I'm saying? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But people want to see the investigation. They want to see the investigation. Before you commit us into a massive global atrocity of World War III, an actual shooting war, you show us some damn proof. And the problem is now every time the State Department in the States comes out and says, we have proof, like in Syria, Obama's mad at Putin for, derailing the Syrian chemical weapons. Oh, well, here, how about you show us the proof and I'll get Assad to stop, ditch his chemical weapons, which Assad pretty much did it because, I mean, these weapons weren't really that effective anyway. They were old. They were, most, there was old 1950s Soviet stuff. So, he wasn't really losing anything. You know what I mean? So with that said, it's like people now demand proof. But with all the new crisis that Obama has been bringing in, the people that were, blindly following him, and this is the most racist thing ever, is that they blindly follow him because they were trying to prove that they weren't racist. How racist is that? If you have to try to convince yourself that you're not a racist, I voted for him because I'm not racist. I voted for him because he was hoping change. Well, after the first term, you should have learned, no, you lost more. He was like George Bush on 2.0. Now he's like, I don't know what you would call him. He's going for the record, of divide and conquer. And many people on the left that were supporting him are now asking these questions. And now they're starting, and this is what's killing them, is that they're starting to agree with the, this guy again. They're not listening to this guy anymore. Hello? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? No. And people, ah. And yeah, and then now you got a bigger crowd too. There we go. Run. There we go. I didn't say I didn't have an overactive imagination, but anyway. So, but you get the idea. People are now demanding proof because they can see the writing on the wall. Many people still can't make the connection to World War III. Again, the dumb criminals are cartels, drug dealers, and guys who knock off gas stations and corner stores. The smart ones get into central banking. People are picking up on that. Again, look at the dominoes falling. You have the Portuguese bank just went insolvent, about a week ago from the making of this. Angola, their bank is pretty much toast. All the banks are connected. Keep that in mind. One domino goes. Argentina, guess what? They collapsed the second time in 13 years. They never recovered. Collapse. I mean, how could how can you fall when you're already on the ground? They're digging holes now. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to be chased out because you have to understand, every one of these banks and stuff that collapse that gets another bailout, they're sucking money from somewhere else, which means people that are already having it hard now have to pay for other people. So how do you spend your way out of debt? With bad investments. So anyway, people are catching on to it. So I think if anything that vet said, basically, the part that where he said, there was no honor in it when, they're, basically these unknown soldiers just, picking them up like garbage and throwing them in a hole, so to speak. He says, there's no honor in that, but he says these guys were very, very honorable and so young. So, again, if you're an American, go look at the NDRP. The NDAA is a sideshow. It's, Section 1021 and 1022, which Obama, okayed, is bad enough. But you really want to go look at that NDRP from, the revisement. I think it revises every 4 years or something like that from 2010, because the draft has been instated, and women now can die on the front line. They're going to draft everybody. It's going to be like Russia in World War II. They're just going to draft. If you're able-bodied to fight, they don't care if you're male or female. So, your daughters and sons get their guts blown out on the battlefield now, and they will draft everybody. So you want to know that. The other thing you need to know is how they're doing this is basically by weapons of mass distraction, Facebook, YouTube, stuff like that. Most people are so self-absorbed that they can't get outside this. But the reason why I make such long shows, a lot of people will watch my videos, and like, I make short videos because, everybody's dumbed down. They got ADD. A 3-minute video is like a lifetime. But I don't do that because I know in order to counter-coup the brainwashed masses, I have to use the same tactics. Problem, reaction, solution. All I do is I expose the problem, you react to it, and then I try to propose a solution, or we come up with a solution together. Big one is just forgive the debt, throw the bankers in jail, let the chips fall where they may, and the corrupt politicians. And restore democracy, allow democracy, like Winston Churchill said, is the worst form of government ever, but it's the best one we got. And I agree. I mean, democracy is used many times just to vote the rights away from other groups in your community, so to speak. Now, the other thing is, if you understand Soviet-style ideological subversion, I'm not saying they're all Soviet spies. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying this is how they rise groups to power. Ideological subversion is a 4-stage, 3-4-stage thing. So first, you must demoralize your society, which there's no more. How do you demoralize a moralist society, right? And that takes about 10 to 15 years to accomplish. Then you must, elevate a group beyond criticism, And there's several groups that will be played off each other. You got the gay rights movement, you got the immigration thing, you got the blacks against the Latinos, and everybody against the whites. There, your groups are now, put up there beyond criticism, and it creates great division. Then you must have a crisis. And when that crisis, it doesn't matter what the crisis is, people have to react to that crisis. Problem, reaction, solution. Okay? And then you must have a massive crackdown during this crisis. Then the situation will be normalized. And the normalization period, and you will hear this language come out of the elites, the New World Order doesn't exist, but, we need a New World Order. Every freaking elite says it. Joe Biden being the most recent, and in our New World Order, he says it like 4 times or something like that. But it doesn't exist. For some reason we don't know what they're talking about. It's like, it's like somebody come up punching you and you say, I didn't do it, but I just saw you. Saw what? It's like, yeah, it's frustrating. It's like, how stupid do you think we are? About what? I just punched you. Or you just punched me. No, I didn't. And you do it again. You just did it again. Anyway, so, I digress. So, during the normalization period, that's when all rights are lost. That's when all freedoms cease to exist. And either a group of people, during the crackdown period, the people that, either end up in jail, disappeared, or that's what happens. And every government uses this blueprint over and over again. So, and then factor in that 1 in every 10 to 1 in every 25 people on the planet is some form of 18 to 22 types of psychopath. And psychopaths always, seek power, positions of power. And if you understand how a psychopathic mind works, you can very easily, Obama is like a basket case. He's like beyond psychopath. He is so narcissistic. But his job from the communist role is, or a communist ideological role, is simply to divide. He's the great divisionist. The antagonist divisionist. That's his job. And look, you got a border crisis going on and he's off on holidays going golfing, or campaigning, and then the last one, just basic human greed. Look at money like heroin. People can get addicted to it. Money is not wealth. It's just medium of exchange. And people will get it. They'll get it whenever they're starving. Money can't buy, wheelbarrow money won't buy them a loaf of bread. They're going to start to barter and trade. I'll give you 3 hours labor for a loaf of bread, half a dozen of eggs, and 19 tomatoes and some cheese, whatever. I like cheese. Cheese is really good. Yeah. But that becomes barter and trade. Hey, wait a minute. You're outside the money paradigm. Why? Because you generated wealth to accumulate resources, and that's why there's such an emphasis on making everybody pay in a dollar of the dollar or euro or whatever. That it's a form of enslavement. That's why you're seeing things like Bitcoin. That's why you're seeing people buy things like gold and silver. But barter and trade, you'd be surprised. Anything around your house can be used for barter and trade, To me, one of the best currencies on the planet is food, But anyway, understanding greed will help people a lot. So anyway, I know I'm going on late now, and I'm going to leave it at this. So 100 years from World War I, we're pretty much, we've come pretty much full circle in the formula of things. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. And if you think this video is important, don't be afraid to share it. I know people will kind of see you as a kind of funny conspiracy guy at first, okay? But, the thing is that once people start listening to videos like this, they don't want a 3-minute video. They want the half-hour show or more, because when you start learning things, it becomes addictive. The brain starts growing. Thum, 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 thum. Then you go from, like, look at my small brain. Look at my big brain. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. So rate, subscribe, share, comment, and like. G'day, hi, and welcome. I'm out here with my big, fat, slobbery, drooly, slobber face of a dog. Hey, Goof. It's going to be a scorcher today, eh? I can hear the heat bugs. Alright, so, you know what we're going to talk about today? I'm going to let my dog tell the story today. What are we going to talk about today? The 100 years of World War I? Is that what we're going to talk about? Or you're just going to get petted?
So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is 100 years since World War
I. I don't think my dog can do it, so I'm going to do it. Anyway. Alright, you can grab your stick. So, 100 years since World War I, so I got a cat rolling on the ground there. Maybe she could tell the story. What you're going to get is, we're almost in the same repeat scenario again. You want to tell the story? I'm not going to tell you the story. Okay, and you're all dirty. Oh my God, you're a dirty cat. Yeah. So anyway, World War I, there's no more World War World War I vets left. I mean, that was a long time ago. It was 100 years ago. And I mean, most guys were underage when they signed up. I mean, you had to be, I think, 16 or 18 to fight in the war, but most people lied. I think you had to be 18, and most lied about their age. And, you know, at the time, they didn't really take any, you know, real measures to ensure quality control. So many guys were, you know, 14, 15, 16 years old. And so I was just watching the CBC, and they're talking about this. And they dug up one file of a veteran who basically, you know, was 14 years old in 1914 and went into the war. And he said a few things. He says, look, when you see, you know, a guy lying there with his guts, well, it takes a lot out of you. He goes, when you see a line, you know, a whole bunch of men lying there after a big shell landed in between them and their parts are up in the trees and everything like that, he goes, that takes away your patriotism pretty fast. I mean, these guys had no idea what they were getting into. I mean, they were sold the bill of goods that, you know what, you're going to go fight in a war, be very patriotic, and you know, it'll be over in like 3 weeks. Yeah, 4 years later, one of the most destructive parts of human history, you know, took place, right? So, now, with World War I, most of the trench warfare was, you know, obviously the most brutal. You know, nobody can imagine, because, you know, you can't imagine it. But most of it was trench warfare and stuff like that. So although a lot of civilians did die in World War I, it wasn't nothing like World War II. World War II is still the reigning champion of, you know, mass, you know, cleansing of the planet, so to speak. And in such a short period, you know. But these wars only lasted, well, not only, but 4 years. World War II was technically, if you, depending on which, you know, it was 4 years for some nations, but it was like 5 or 6 years for everybody else. So, you know, we'll split the difference and say 4.5 years. You know, 1938 to 1945. You know, but the real, you know, war really kicked off in 1940 officially. You know, again, depending on what nation you were in, you'll say, no, the war kicked off in 38. No, it kicked off in, you know, like the Spanish War and stuff like that. And then, of course, the occupation started in build up from 1933 right to 1938, and then, you know, all hell breaks loose, noticeably where they actually call it a war in 1940. Now, getting back to World War I, the other thing the guy said too, because he fought in the Battle of Somme and Vimy Ridge, which are two very, very, World War I. If you don't know about Vimy Ridge and World War I, well, you know, that's, you know, that was a big one, and the Battle of Somme was pretty big. Also, there was the Battle of where was it? Ert? Not Ert. I'm trying to think of it here. Anyway, where the chemical warfare, Yerps. I'm drawing a blank right now. You think I might remember my history a little bit better, but it is hot out. So anyway, where chemical warfare was used against Belgians and Canadians for the first time, chlorine gas. Now, this guy also says something very interesting too, and this is something. The reason why I'm making this video is because it puts things into perspective before people make decisions, and how they get the masses to make, you know, basically the sheep concept, where they just follow the leader. Is, you know, he's standing over graves in probably one of the grave sites in France, or, you know, somewhere where they have, you know, mass burials, and you have basically all the headstones there, and he says, you know, the worst of it was all the brilliant guys that got killed that could have been something. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe not those exact words, but in that, you know, they could have been something. They were so young, you know what I mean? And this is